How we doing, everybody? This is my presentation on the use of vitamin C in the treatment of sepsis. So, brief background. In 2016, Dr. Paul Marik, he was treating a 48-year-old female patient with severe sepsis, and she was near death. It was pretty much like an last-ditch effort. He's throwing everything against the wall. He ended up using IV vitamin C with thiamine and corticosteroids after recalling a study that he read out of VCU Medical Center on using vitamin C in the treatment of sepsis. He left that night fully expecting the patient to be dead in the morning. When he came back, and to his actual surprise, she turned the corner and was improving, and she ended up actually walking out of that ICU. So what happened next? Dr. Marik was like, wow, I should try using this treatment in future septic patients. So he did. He used the cocktail, the vitamin C, thiamine, and corticosteroids, and he found that on the next 47 patients that he treated it with it, only 4 died. So he was really impressed with the results, so he actually went back and looked at a prior 47 patients that never got the cocktail, and he found that out of that group, 19 had died. This isn't your standard way to evaluate a study. Usually, you do a side-by-side comparison, have a control group and a treatment group gets the treatment, and then the control group gets like a placebo and doesn't get the treatment, and then you compare the results, how well the treatment group did compared to the control group. So anyways, so after that initial 47 patients, he continued to treat his septic patients with it, and the next 150 patients that he had, he only had 1 death out of those 150 patients. So what's the chemistry behind it? So during sepsis, during the septic reaction, the body starts to generate large amounts of reactive oxygen, which is actually harmful to the body. Vitamin C is an antioxidant, and actually this neutralizes that reactive oxygen and prevents the damage that it causes to our bodies. So the Marik study. So his research actually paved the way to 2 major studies. When he started telling doctors about it and was like, "Oh my God, I'm getting these results." Some doctors were like, "Wow, I want to hop on board," and they started adding the treatment to their septic patients. Other doctors looked at him like he had 10 heads and vitamin C, this it's just a bunch of hoopla. And then you had a group of doctors that were kind of just like, I'm going to sit by the wayside and, see what happens. So 2 major studies end up coming out of this. One being the Victus study, and then the other is a study that's being headed by doctors from Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center in Boston. Both studies have an independent board that is monitoring their data. And the results, if they're futile and it's more harmful to patients, then, the studies can be called off early before concluding. And just over the years, sepsis, because obviously it's a major problem that we encounter, they actually, there's been over 100 different studies on proposed treatment methods, and they all, started off promising, but ended up flopping. So it's kind of there's no real clear-cut proven treatment modality for sepsis. So the Victus study, currently there are 28 active sites that have screened so far over 812 patients, and currently have over 178 patients enrolled in the study. This study has major medical centers like Yale, New Haven, Stanford University, and Johns Hopkins taking part of it. Their goal is to enroll at least 500 patients, give them all the best care possible, regardless if they're getting the vitamin C cocktail or not. And then, in the end, compare the results of the 2 groups and, see if that vitamin C cocktail actually is, what it seems to be cracked out to be. So potential economic impacts of this treatment. One doctor, Dr. Cooper Smith, he was actually in that wait and see group as it pertained to Dr. Marek's study. He actually ended up having a septic patient that was near death, and ended up actually trying the cocktail on the patient and had the same kind of results. Patient turned the corner and pulled through. So he was actually pretty amazed by what happened. And he stated that it's not like it's a new cancer drug or something like that can cost $50,000 to $100,000 for the treatment, and then if your insurance doesn't cover this experimental drug, you have to mortgage your house to try to pay for it. The cocktail of vitamin C, thiamine, and corticosteroids is very, very cheap, and it can be easily accessible throughout the world, and even in impoverished countries that don't have the access to the kind of medical care that we do in the United States and stuff like that. So how does the vitamin C cocktail physically and biologically affect the patient? Dr. Marek's study, out of that 47 patients, he only had 4 deaths that got the cocktail. That's 8.5% died. Out of the 47 that didn't get the cocktail, 17 died, and he had so that's a 40.4% death ratio. They also found that organ failure scores decreased in the treatment group, and then that actually none in the treatment group developed progressive organ failure. The treatment group was found that they were able to be weaned off of vasopressors after an average of only 18.3 hours, compared to the group that didn't get the cocktail. They had an average time of 54.9 hours on vasopressors before they were actually able to wean them off of them. They said that vitamin C, together with the corticosteroids and thiamine, was effective in preventing progressive organ dysfunction, as well as reducing the mortality of patients with severe sepsis and septic shock. The data suggests that the protocol impacts the pathophysiology of sepsis and limits organ failure, reduces vasopressor requirements, and reduces the mortality rate. So the conclusion, it's a readily available, concoction of 3 ingredients: vitamin C, thiamine, and corticosteroids. We have in the United States roughly 1 million cases of sepsis treated per year, and currently have around 300,000 people die from sepsis every year. These drugs that they're super cost effective, they're super cheap, and they have little to no known side effects compared to issues that you have with vasopressors and stuff like that. And then it has the potential that it can potentially save millions of lives, not only in the United States but around the world. While it is in its infancy of medical trials, like I said, it has been picked up by 2 major research groups, and if the results that Dr. Marek himself found in his trial can be reproduced by these major trials, this could lead to a pathway worldwide for the treatment and management of sepsis, and it could revolutionize the way that we actually care for our severely septic patients that we see coming into our ERs and ICUs. I just want to thank everybody for checking out my video. The next slide I'm going to bring up is the references. I'll leave this up here for a few seconds here, so if you want, you can pause it and you can check out these articles if you want to. Some pretty interesting stuff. Thanks again, and it was a pleasure being in this class with you guys for this past half semester.